The day unfolded under a generous sun in the heart of a local party that throbbed alive. The aroma of food hovered in the air, mixing with festive melodies and carefree laughs. Anna packed her little Leo, a curious-eyed baby that absorbed the vibrant tapestry of colors and sounds. His mother's heart was full, immersed in that simple and perfect happiness, completely oblivious to the shadow that was quickly approaching. The soft breeze carried conversations and laugh fragments, painting an idyllic picture of community and celebration. Nothing, absolutely nothing, seemed able to disturb the peace of that moment. The heat of the sun was a cloak of comfort about the scene, a day designed to create sweet memories and celebrate the joy of living. Harmony was suddenly broken by a wave of commotion. A gate, left open by carelessness, became the gateway to chaos. The bull, a magnificent and powerful creature, burst through the room, and the initial confusion quickly metamorphosed in widespread panic. Shouts ripped the air and people started running in all directions. Anna grabbed Leo more strongly, her protective instinct to master all other thoughts. His eyes swept the area in search of an escape route, his mind running at a dizzying speed. The sound of the hooves hammering the floor became louder and louder, a terrifying drum that announced the arrival of imminent danger. Disoriented and enraged by the noise and chaotic movement, the bull invested blindly against the crowd. His eyes, bumping into fear and anger, were fixed on anything that moved, transforming him into a force of indomitable and destructive nature. People dispersed like leaves in the wind, desperately seeking refuge. Anna was cornered, with the wall on one side and the panic crowd on the other. He tried to protect little Leo with his own body, a fragile barrier against the approaching fury. The animal's brute force was a terrifying spectacle, each buffet and paired on the ground a promise of imminent destruction. Her heart was uncontrolled against her ribs. In the middle of the pandemonium, Anna's feet failed and she stumbled. The baby carrier, which until then was a security symbol, became a point of extreme vulnerability. Leo slipped from his arms, falling gently in a small piece of grass a few meters away. To Anna, the world plunged into absolute silence. His vision focused only on his son, so small, so defenseless, lying directly on the path of the enraged bull. It was a mother's worst nightmare to come true, a horrible image of innocence about to be crushed. Time seemed to be stretched and distorted, each second an eternity of agony. The bull spotted the baby. The living red of Leo's blanket seemed to attract his attention, a focal point in the middle of chaos. He lowered his head, his massive horns pointing directly to the child's fragile body. Anna let out a cry of pure anguish, a sound torn from the depths of her soul. It was the desperate clamor of a mother who saw her world about to be shattered. He tried to get up, determined to throw himself between the beast and his son in a last act of desperate love. But the distance was too large, the bull too fast. She knew she wouldn't arrive on time. The crowd watched, paralyzed by horror. No one dared to move, frozen by fear and the certainty that they would witness an indescribable tragedy. The air was heavy with silent prayers and incredulity sighs. The scene was surreal, a calm nightmare slowly unfolding under the brilliant sun of the afternoon. The helplessness of the situation was a crushing burden for all present, a collective terror sharing. Men who, proud of their strength, were preached to the ground, unable to react to such an overwhelming force. It would be a moment that would be recorded forever in your collective memory. Anna's mind was a whirlwind of and if at least. If only they had stayed at home. If only she had not stumbled. If only you had held it harder. Repentance and guilt flooded it, even as the primal instinct of saving his son consumed her. These thoughts were cruel and useless torture, blinking in her mind as she faced the unthinkable. His love for Leo was a physical pain, a rip in his chest more excruciating than any wound the bull could inflict him. She was living 1,000 deaths in those few seconds. The bull took another step, his breathing going out in hot and steaming buffets. The floor was shaking slightly under its immense weight. Leo, oblivious to the deadly danger he was in, simply babbled, extending a hand toward the giant creature. This innocent gesture only increased the unbearable tension of the moment, a moving contrast between the baby's naivete and the destructive potential of the bull. The silence of the crowd was a deafening roar in Anna's ears, amplifying the sound of her own frantic heart. The world had reduced to this unique and horrible point in space and time. In that last moment of stopping his heart before the impact, while Anna's hope was gone like sand through her fingers, a shadow moved. It was a quick, unexpected movement from nowhere. A figure broke the paralyzed immobility of the crowd, a blur of motion against the backdrop of the terror. It was a desperate effort of the last minute, a single soul to refuse to accept the inevitable. For Anna, it was an impossible glimpse of light in the deepest darkness, a moment that would redefine the meaning of hope and courage to the rest of her life. The sigh of the crowd was a unique and unified sound of shock and growing admiration. The party room, which was moments before was a cheerful celebration stage, became a silent arena of dread. Vibrant music died, replaced by a collective and horrified sigh. The colorful flags and tents, which previously looked so happy, now looked like mocking decorations for a stage of imminent tragedy. The sun, which had been a source of heat and comfort, now projected long and sinister shadows about the scene. It was as if the whole world had stopped its rotation, sustaining breathing in anticipation of the horrible event that was about to unfold. Each person present was a reluctant spectator in a theater of primal fear, his fixed eyes on the two central figures, the bull and the baby. For Anna, this silence was deafening. The screams and frantic screams had been faded in a deaf tinnitus in his ears, and all she could see was the focused and terrifying stillness between her son and the beast. His senses were sharp to an excruciating degree. She could see each contraction of the bull muscle, every dust flake raised by her hooves, each bending in the red blanket that surrounded her son. The world had shrunk for this tiny and terrifying grass circle. This sensory overload paradoxically created a sense of distancing, as if watching a movie of the greatest horror of your own life. His own breathing seemed impossibly high in stillness. The bull himself seemed to move in this suspended bubble. His rarely explosive and chaotic anger had now found a unique and chilling focus. He shaped the floor slowly, deliberately, his massive head low. The action was no longer of frantic anger, but of cold and calculated intention. The immense power of the creature was wrapped, a spring of deadly energy waiting to be released. The silence of the arena seemed to amplify his presence, making him look even greater, even more threatening. He was the indisputable king of this sudden and silent kingdom of fear, and his subject was a defenseless baby. Leo, in his innocence, was calm at the center of the storm. He was lying on the grass, his bright eyes looking into the colossal form that rose over him. He didn't cry or scream, he was totally unconscious of danger. He had babbled, a soft, happy sound that was a stark and bleak contrast to the suffocating tension that dominated everyone else. It was this innocence, this complete lack of fear, which made the scene even more unbearable to witness. His tranquility was a moving reminder of the fragility of life and the cruelty of fate. He was a perfect and beautiful soul on the edge of the abyss. The crowd was a garden of statues of human emotion. The faces were recorded with unbelief, horror, and a deep feeling of powerlessness. People who were strange moments before, they were now joined in a silent and shared vigil. The hands were on his mouths, his eyes wide and blinding, the frozen bodies in place. They were trapped between the instinct to look away and the morbid and inescapable need to see what would happen next. This shared paralysis was a powerful testimony of the shocking nature of the event. They were not just watching, they were participating in silence, their immobility to increase the weight of the moment. In this frozen picture, every detail became hyper-visible. A fallen ice cream cone melted on the floor. A colorful balloon escaping to the sky, a silent symbol of lost joy. The shine of the sun in the sharp horns of the bull. These worldly details, against the background of a drama of life or death, assumed a deep and surreal meaning. It was the small, clear fragments of a world that was normal for just a few minutes, a world that now seemed impossibly distant. The contrast between the ordinary and the extraordinary had never been so stark or so painful. The time itself seemed to be folded and distorted. For Anna, the seconds extended in agonizing eternities. She was living a lifetime of fear in the space between the breaths of the bull. The distance between her and her son seemed an insurmountable abyss. She tried to force her legs to move, shout, to do anything, but she was stuck in the same temporal distortion as everyone else. It was a unique and personal hell, being so close and at the same time so powerless. His mind shouted, a silent and inner winch that found no voice in the air standing in the arena. The only sounds were the elementary, the bull buffet, the baby's smooth ruling, the frantic and silent beating of 100 hearts. It was a primal sound band for a primal scene. The absence of human noise stripped the event until its terrifying essence, a competition between brute force and absolute vulnerability. The complex layers of society, civilization, and the celebration had been removed, leaving only this crude and brutal reality. The silence was a screen on which the most basic of fears was being painted in bright and horrible colors. So the silence was broken. Not for a scream, or by a scream, or the thud of impact, but for the sound of feet running. A unique pace and determined to beat the earth cut the thick cloak of time suspended. It was the sound of intervention, the courage to challenge fate. This new sound shattered the stillness, freeing the crowd of his spell. The heads turned around, the eyes focused again, and a new emotion began to erode through the silent arena, a fragile and unbelievable spark of hope. The frozen moment was over, and what would come after it would change everything. From the periphery of the frozen multitude, a figure emerged. He was not a bullfighter, not a police, not an young athletic at the height of his strength. He was an elderly man, known in the village as John, a silent farmer whose hands were nodes of a lifetime working the earth. He was bent by age, his face is a map of wrinkles, his usually slow and deliberate movements. No one would have chosen him for a hero. He was a man of the earth, quiet and unpretentious, more comfortable with the ground than with the center of public drama attention. Its presence was so familiar that it was almost invisible to the inhabitants of the city. While others were paralyzed by fear, something different stirred in John. He did not see a terrifying beast, but a disoriented animal. He did not see only a baby in danger, but a life that had not yet been lived. In his long years, he had seen the cycle of life and death in his fifth many times, but had never accepted the cruelty or avoidable tragedy. An ancient protective instinct, improved by decades to take care of his own family and cattle, has traveled his old veins. It was a deep and silent force, not born of adrenaline, but of wisdom and compassion. He does not scream or draw attention to himself. Your actions are fluid and with purpose. He grabs the first thing he finds, a simple wooden cane that always carried. It is a fragile and insignificant tool against the power of an enraged bull, a laughable defense before such power. But in his hands it is not a weapon but a distraction tool, an extension of his will. He moves with surprising agility that belies his age, his absolute focus. Its movements are economical without wasting energy, each step calculated. John does not run facing the bull. That would be suicide. Instead, he surrounds, using his knowledge of animal behavior. He positions himself next to the bull's line of view, becoming a more immediate and remarkable target than the small and property of the baby on the floor. He needs to break the bull fixation. It is a calculated risk, a deadly chess game where it opposes your mind and experience against brute and overwhelming bull's force. He understood the language of animals, a silent communication of posture and intention. He hits the cane hard against a metal railing, creating a tall, sharp sound that cuts the tense silence. The sound is shocking, unexpected. The bull shudder, his head suddenly gets up, his attention momentarily diverted from the baby. John shouts, his voice is not a scream of fear, but a deep and authoritarian roar, the kind a farmer uses to call his flock. It is a sound of authority, of someone who is not afraid. For the first time, the bull hesitates, its anger momentarily replaced by confusion. He sees a new challenge, a different kind of presence. The crowd, torn from his paralysis through the sound, watches with astonishment. Old John's view, the silent man from the outskirts of the city, confronting the bull, is almost as shocking as the initial danger. A murmur runs through the viewers, a mixture of fear for their safety and growing admiration for their incredible bravery. They are witnessing something extraordinary, an act of altruistic courage that challenges all logic and expectation. He was one of them, but he was doing what none of them dared to do. With the attention of the bull now fixed on him, John begins a slow and deliberate withdrawal, driving the animal away from the baby. He never turns his back, his fixed eyes on the bull. He moves with a grace and confidence that is mesmerizing to watch, a dance with the death made on the dusty floor of the party. Each step is a bet, each moment a suspended breath. He is creating a precious opportunity window, a few seconds security for someone to rescue the child. He was buying time with his own life as currency. Your gesture is pure and unchanged courage. There is no thought of reward or recognition in your mind. Their actions are driven by a simple and deep human impulse, to protect the vulnerable, to rise against overwhelming probabilities for the good of another. It is a moment of pure grace, a testimony of the fact that heroes are not defined by their strength or youth, but by the choices they make before fear. His bravery was a silent sermon on the nature of humanity, more powerful than any words could be. While John continues his dangerous stance, driving the bull out more and more, Anna, brought back to reality by her intervention, rises from a leap. The way is free. With a hiccup of relief and terror, she runs forward, takes her precious son and removes for the safety of the crowd. John's unlikely and altruistic act worked. He changed the course of destination alone, transforming an inevitable tragedy into a miraculous rescue story. The unlikely hero, with nothing more than a cane and a lifetime of wisdom, had saved the day. The focus of the drama now moves entirely to the two figures in the makeshift arena, the old and the bull. The baby is safe, packed in his mother's arms, but the danger is far from over. John is now the only target of the immense and redirected fury of the bull. The crowd, who had begun to breathe a collective relief, holds her breath once again. The struggle is impossibly unequal. On one side, a creature weighing almost a ton, a mountain of muscle and horn driven by a primal anger. On the other, an elderly man armed only with a piece of wood and his cunning. The bull invests. It is a terrifying view, a black skin blur and deadly intention. The ground shakes as he advances toward John. There is no subtlety, just brute force, an unstoppable avalanche of power. For viewers, it is an inevitable conclusion. Man's brave gesture would be his last. They prepare for the inevitable and horrible impact. The sound of its hooves is a touch of all souls, each beaten a decreasing count for the end. The pure speed of the onslaught seems to suck the air from the space between them. But John is not a stationary target. He does not try to face the force head-on. In the last second, with a speed that seems impossible for his age, he deviates himself. He uses his own bull's impetus against him. The massive animal, unable to change direction quickly, passes him to thunder, colliding with a wooden wagon and shattering it. The demonstration of power is to break the breath and the fact that John has avoided even more. It was a movement born of a lifetime to observe and understand animals, not athletic feat. John does not run. He remains firm, recovering his breath, his eyes never turning away from the bull. He knows that running is triggering the animal's persecution instinct, is to show fear. Your posture is of challenge, calm control in the face of overwhelming power. He is giving a masterful class of courage, each action his lesson on how to face his own demons. It projects an aura of command that, for a moment, seems to confuse the bull. The animal is used to that things run away from it, not to keep firm. The bull turns around, shaking his massive head, his anger now mixed with frustration. It releases a roar that echoes throughout the party room. It is a sound of pure fury, a promise of retaliation. He shakes the floor again, digging grooves on earth, preparing for another onslaught. This time, it will not be so easily deceived. Intelligence in your dark eyes is scary. He is learning, adapting. The battle is not only of strength, but of cunning, a deadly psychological game. The struggle is a raw metaphor for life itself. The lonely and fragile human facing the seemingly insurmountable forces of fate, chaos, brute nature. John embodies the resilience of the human spirit, the refusal to surrender even when the probabilities are impossibly against him. His struggle is the struggle of all, a symbolic struggle that resonates deeply with each person who watches. They are not just seeing a man against a bull, they are seeing a representation of their own battles, their own fears, their own hopes for survival and dignity. Another onslaught comes, this is more cunning. The bull feints to one side before dodging and throwing himself toward John. But the old man is ready. He throws his cane to the side, a sudden movement that attracts the look of the bull. The animal's head follows the cane for a fraction of a second, a small distraction that gives John the fraction of the moment he needs to dodge again. It is a desperate and bright tactic using the animal's own instincts to create an opening. The margin for error is non-existent. He is tiring. The physical and mental tension of this deadly dance is beginning to notice. Its breaths come in irregular arcings and a glow of sweat covers its wrinkled forehead. He knows he can't continue like this for long. His body, old and worn out, shouts in protest. He is fighting a battle against the bull and against his own time. Each deviation, each feint, drains its precious and limited energy reserves. He needs a way out, a final move to finish this confrontation before he finishes him. Just when the bull recomposes itself to what seems to be a final and decisive onslaught, help arrives. Several younger and younger men, inspired by John's incredible bravery, finally break free from their fear. They run forward with strings and blankets, creating a distraction, a barrier, finally being able to corner the angry animal and guide it back to its corral. John stumbles back, his legs finally give in. He won. He survived the unequal struggle, not by strength, but by courage, wisdom, and an unbreakable spirit. The impossible struggle was over. As the chaos dissipates and the bull is finally contained, a strange and deep stillness sets out again in the party room. But this is not the silence of fear, it is a silence of admiration and unbelief. The crowd, now surrounding Anna and her baby and the exhausted John, processes the miracle they have just witnessed. An almost certain tragedy was avoided by the most unlikely of heroes. Emotional shock is immense, from the depths of terror to the heights of the relieved celebration. The air is dense with a sense of reverence shared by what has just happened. It was a day that no one would ever forget. Anna, with her face stained with tears, grabs Leo so hard that he writhing himself. She can't stop shaking. His gaze alternates between his perfectly safe son and the old man, John, who is now being helped to get up. She is not just a rescuer, but a savior, an angel disguised as humble farmer. Her heart overflows with such immense gratitude that she leaves her speechless. How do you thank someone who saved her whole world? Words seem cheap, inappropriate to express the depth of their emotion. She feels a connection with this man who will last a lifetime. John, shaking the dust and concern of his neighbors, seems almost embarrassed with attention. He simply nods, his breath still heavy. When they ask you why you did it, your answer is simple and deep. It was the right thing to do, he says with a hoarse voice. A life is a life. No one should be watching while it is taken. In his simple words lies a universe of wisdom and integrity. His heroism was not a choice for him, it was an obligation, a fundamental part of its character. He does not seek praise, only the quiet satisfaction of having acted with justice. A remarkable connection was forged in the crucible of that terrifying moment. The mother, baby, and old are now linked by an invisible wire. They are no longer just a young woman, a child, and an elder of the village. They are a unity, a testimony of the fact that the community and courage can triumph over chaos. Its story is instantly a legend in the city, a tale to be counted for generations. It speaks of deep, often invisible connections that unite people, links that only reveal themselves in times of crisis. The event forces all who witnessed him to look at his world differently. They look at old John not as a fragile and old man, but as a giant, a man of immense courage. They look at each other with a renewed sense of shared responsibility. The party, which had been a symbol of simple joy, is now a symbol of something much deeper, the resilience of its community and the extraordinary potential for good that lies in ordinary people. The incident drew the varnish of daily life and showed them the powerful currents of humanity that flow underneath. In the following days, Anna leads Leo to visit John on her small farm. There are few words, but a deep understanding passes between them. She watches as the old man, whose hands were firm enough to face a bull, kindly holds his son's tiny finger. It is a moment of deep peace and connection. The baby, who was the focus of the terrifying event, now becomes the bridge between the young mother and the old hero, a living symbol of life that was saved and the bond that was formed. This connection extends beyond the individuals involved. The city itself feels a change. People are faster with each other, more willing to help. The story of John and Taurus becomes a point of reference, a reminder of his shared values. The fear of that day was transformed into a source of pride and community strength. They faced a monster together and, through their actions, triumphed. The memory of the silent and terrified arena is replaced by the memory of courage and salvation. The miracle is not just the fact that the baby has survived. The miracle lies in the revelation of character, the spontaneous act of altruistic courage, and the powerful sense of community that emerged from chaos. It is a reminder that the strongest forces in the world are not anger and power, but compassion and bravery. The connection forged between a desperate mother, a defenseless baby, and a brave old man is a testimony of the lasting power of the human spirit to connect and protect even before death. Life returns to normal, but it is a new normal enriched by experience. Leo will grow up to hear the story of the day when an old farmer saved his life, a story that will shape his understanding of courage and humanity. Anna will forever take the image of John's bravery in her heart. And John, in his humble tranquility, will know that, in the twilight of his life, he made his most important act. The unexpected connection, born of terror, flourished in a beautiful affirmative miracle of life that touched everyone. The history of the bull, the baby, and the old becomes more than just a memory, it becomes a living lesson. For the whole community, the incident serves as a powerful and lasting parable. He is dissected and discussed in homes, cafes, and village square. Each narration reinforces the central messages of courage, community, and the surprising nature of heroism. The event left an indelible mark in the collective conscience of the city, shaping its identity and values for many years. It is a story that tells their children a modern fable with real, life heroes. The main lesson is that the heroes are not who we hope they will be. They do not use covers or have superhuman strength. They are often silent and unpretentious people in our midst, those we can ignore in our daily lives. John's heroism teaches the younger generation to respect his elders, not just for his age, but for the deep well of wisdom and courage they have. He challenges the stereotypes of age and fragility, proving that the force of character is not old. The incident aroused a new appreciation by the older members of his community. For Anna, the lesson is of surveillance and the precious and fragile nature of life. She never guaranteed a single moment with her son. The terror of that day urged him a deep appreciation for the simple and quiet moments, a shared laugh, a stuff of packing, a warm hug. She has learned that the fabric of a happy life is fabric with these small strands of everyday life and can be torn in an instant. Your gratitude is a constant and silent prayer, a background melody for the rest of your life. She became a more present and conscious mother. Leo, the baby in the center of everything, will grow as a living symbol of this legacy. He is the baby miracle, the boy saved by the old farmer. As it is growing, the story will be told not to scare him but to instill the values that saved his life. He will learn about John's courage and his mother's fierce love. This knowledge will become part of your identity, a moral compass to guide your actions. He carries the weight and honor of the legacy, a constant reminder of people's goodness. The incident also teaches a valuable lesson about fear. Each person in the crowd that day felt the same paralyzing terror. They understood, in a very visceral way, how fear can immobilize, how it can turn active participants into powerless viewers. But they also saw that fear can be overcome. John was afraid but acted despite him. This becomes a powerful message for everyone. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act in your presence. This enables them to face their own more personal fears with a new perspective. A tangible legacy is also created. The parish council, moved by the event, decides to erect a small sign near the incident site. It does not portray violence, but the result, a simple sculpture of an old man's hand to extend to that of a baby. Registration says, "Courage is the love for others in action." It becomes a milestone, a place of reflection, a permanent reminder of the day when its small town showed its immense heart. The plate ensures that the story and its lessons will not fade with the memories of those who were there. John, in his last years, becomes a revered figure, a living legend. The children gather on their farm, not just to hear the story, but to be in their presence. He never boasts. He simply shares his wisdom, talking about the importance of goodness to animals and people, of doing the right thing even when it's hard. His legacy is not that of a single dramatic act, but of a lifetime of silent integrity that was revealed to all that fateful day. He becomes the moral compass of the city, his unofficial grandfather. History spreads, taken by visitors and recounting in neighboring cities. It becomes part of regional folklore, a testimony of the strength of the human spirit. The legacy is of hope. It is a story that states that even in a world that may seem chaotic and cruel, there is a huge ability for good. It shows that a person's actions can have a deep impact, creating waves of positive change that play many lives. It is a reminder that we are all connected and all responsible for each other. Ultimately, the legacy of the incident is intertwined in the very structure of the future of the city. The survivors, direct and indirect, carry the lessons ahead. Anna raises a son who understands courage. Spectators teach their children about community responsibility. And the history of the silent farmer who became a hero serves as an eternal lighthouse, reminding everyone that the potential for greatness, for kindness, for a miracle resides within them all, waiting for his moment to break silence and change the world. The tranquility of a party day is shattered when an enraged bull escapes and invests directly against a defenseless baby. The crowd watches, paralyzed by terror, while a desperate mother sees her worst nightmare to come true. The time for silence falls like a shroud and the tragedy seems inevitable. But at the darkest moment, when all hope seems lost, an unlikely figure emerges from the crowd. What follows is not just an act of bravery, but a miracle of courage that will redefine the meaning of hero and unite a community forever. This is not just a story of survival, it is a testimony of the power of the human spirit before absolute terror.